Welcome back, everyone, to Bookish Dives.
Great to be diving in again.
If you've been with us before, you know the drill. We take a book, break it down, really get into the core ideas.
Yep. And if you're new here, think of this as your fast track to understanding some really compelling concepts.
Today, we're tackling Slow Productivity, The Lost Art of Accomplishment Without Burnout by Cal Newport.
A really timely book, I think. We'll basically unpack the key takeaways for you. You get the essence without needing to clear your schedule for, a week of reading.
Though it's definitely worth a read if you get the chance.
Oh, absolutely. What's interesting, maybe a bit counterintuitive, is how his approach often leads to more significant impact. Just by being, more focused. We'll see some examples.
Okay, so let's start where Newport does with this anecdote about John McPhee. He's a writer for The New Yorker, a legend, really.
Right, and this isn't some, beginner struggling. This is back in '66. McPhee's already got serious credits, big magazine pieces, years at time. He knows how to write.
Exactly. But here he is, summer of '66, lying flat on his back on a picnic table for 2 solid weeks, just frozen, paralyzed by panic, basically.
And it wasn't classic writer's block like staring at a blank page. He'd done 8 months of intense research for this New Yorker piece. He said he had enough material to, quote, fill a silo.
Wow, a silo.
Yeah. He traveled, read everything, talked to everyone. But when it came time to actually write the sheer amount of stuff, it just crushed him.
That feeling of being completely overwhelmed.
Totally. He has this great line, your last piece is never going to write your next one for you. It hits on that feeling, right? Past success doesn't mean the next big, complex thing will be easy, especially with mountains of info.
So he's got this silo of research, all these threads, and he just can't see the path through it, stuck for 2 weeks.
Until this name pops up, Fred Brown. Kind of solution. We'll get back to Fred later.
Okay, yeah. But that image, McPhee on the picnic table, a pro, just immobilized by the work, that's the perfect launch pad for Newport's whole idea of slow productivity. Makes you think,
It really does. And it's out of struggles like that feeling of drowning, that Newport builds his alternative. Slow productivity. It boils down to 3 sort of core principles.
Okay, what are they?
First, do fewer things. Just take on less. Second, work at a natural pace. Got to find your own rhythm. And third, obsess over quality. Really focus on making what you do produce excellent.
Do fewer things, natural pace, obsess over quality. That feels almost rebellious today, doesn't it?
It really does. Because the default mode is busy, busy, busy. More hours equals more productive, right? That's the assumption.
The hustle culture mantra.
Exactly. Newport just flips that. He says, look, being constantly overloaded isn't noble. It's actually stopping you from doing your best, most impactful work. It's a critique of just, looking busy.
Yeah.
Performative productivity.
Pseudo-productivity, he calls it.
That's the term. It's about championing something more sustainable, more, human. It accepts we need focus bursts, sure, but also real downtime. Rest, thinking time, letting ideas actually simmer and develop.
Across different timelines, too, right? Like daily, weekly,
Yes.
longer.
Exactly. Not just cramming everything in constantly. And the ultimate goal isn't just picking boxes. It's creating stuff of real quality, work that lasts, work that matters, not just activity.
Okay, so why are we all so exhausted then? If this busyness isn't actually productive, Newport dives into that, right? This idea of pseudo-productivity.
He does. He uses this example from the mid-90s CBS executive Les Moonves. Network's doing badly, and Moonves' big idea. Just demand everyone work longer hours, more time in the chair equals better results.
The classic response.
Right. But then, around the same time, you get network computers hitting offices everywhere. Email arrives, then later tools like Slack.
The game changers.
Totally. Because suddenly it became incredibly easy to talk about work, to signal that you were working, without actually doing the deep, focused work needed. Firing off emails, being constantly available on chat. It looks like productivity.
Low effort signaling.
Exactly. Newport points to this pretty damning analysis, showing most workers can't even go 6 minutes without checking email or instant messages. 6 minutes.
Wow. That's constant interruption.
It is. And it contributes to burnout. He cites studies, like one from McKinsey and Lean In, showing burnout among knowledge workers is skyrocketing. There's a Gallup poll showing U.S. workers are among the most stressed globally.
And yet, effort seems to be going up alongside the stress.
Paradoxically, yes. People are trying harder, putting in more effort, but feeling more stressed and less effective. Part of the problem, Newport argues, is that knowledge work is just hard to measure.
Right. It's not like counting widgets produced on an assembly line. How do you measure insight or a well-crafted strategy.
Precisely. So without clear metrics for actual productivity, falling back on looking busy pseudo-productivity feels like the only option, especially when communication is frictionless and you can take your work anywhere on a laptop. It's a perfect storm for feeling overwhelmed.
So it sounds pretty bleak. Is there a better way? Does Newport offer hope?
He does. And interestingly, he goes back to that CBS story. Remember Moonves demanding longer hours when they were last in the ratings?
Yeah. Did it work?
Well, CBS did eventually turn around, moved from last to first. But Newport suggests it wasn't just about brute force hours. He contrasts Moonves' top-down demand with another story from around the same time.
Oh, okay.
It's about a guy named Anthony Zucker. At the time, he was working as a casino tram operator in Vegas. But he had this knack for writing, this idea bubbling away.
A tram operator. Okay, interesting pivot.
Right. He had this idea for a crime show focused on the forensic investigation side. Really detailed stuff. He was persistent, developed it, pitched it energetically to ABC, and got rejected.
Ouch.
Yeah. But he didn't give up. He formed his own little production company, great name, Dare to Pass. Kept working on it, rewrites, cushion it. He eventually got it in front of his CBS executive, Nina Tassler. More rewrites, more persistence.
So he was really focused on this one thing.
Intensely focused. Eventually, Tassler was convinced, brought in director Billy Peterson, they got Les Moonves on board, and they made the pilot for CSI, Crime Scene Investigation.
Wow, CSI came from that, from the tram operator's focused idea.
Yep. Newport uses it as a prime example.
Yeah.
Zucker wasn't spreading himself thin, trying to look busy. He poured his energy into one high-potential project, obsessed over it, and the result was massive. It's the polar opposite of pseudo-productivity's scattered efforts.
That's a powerful contrast, focusing intensely on something valuable versus just churning.
Exactly. Which leads us to think about, well, what is knowledge work? Fundamentally, Newport offers a broad definition.
Okay, let's hear it.
Basically, it's any economic activity where the main input is cognitive effort, transforming knowledge into something the market values. An artifact, he calls it.
So not just office workers crunching spreadsheets?
Not at all. It's writers, sure, but also philosophers, scientists, musicians, strategists, coders, anyone whose primary tool is their brain, creating something new from information or ideas.
That makes sense. And I guess traditionally, maybe some of those roles, like writers or academics, had more flexibility, more built-in slowness?
Often, yes. They might have had more control over their schedules, fewer constant interruptions. Newport acknowledges that, but he argues we can still learn general principles about sustainable creative work from their experiences. Like McPhee on the picnic table, the ultimate lesson there was about needing to slow down to synthesize complexity.
Right. Which brings us back to those three principles. The first one, do fewer things.
Principle number 1, reduce your obligations so you actually have the bandwidth to fully commit to the projects that truly matter.
Okay, sounds great in theory. But, reality check. Clients demand things, managers pile on tasks. How do you actually do fewer things?
It's definitely the million-dollar question. Newport uses the example of Jane Austen. There's this popular myth of her, scribbling away secretly in the family drawing room amidst constant interruptions.
Yeah, I've heard that, hiding her pages when someone came in.
Right. But the reality, Newport points out, is that her most productive period, when she finished Sense and Sensibility, Pride and Prejudice, Mansfield Park. It came after her father closed his school and the family moved to Chawton Cottage. Her domestic duties significantly decreased.
Ah, so less stuff she had to do.
Exactly. It wasn't about hiding her work. It was about finally having, as Newport puts it, real and meaningful space to think and work creatively. Fewer obligations freed her up for the big, important work.
Okay, interesting historical example. But what about today's knowledge workers?
Well, he brings it forward with a more recent story. Jonathan Frostick, an HSBC program manager. You might have seen his story. It went viral. He had a heart attack.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And while recovering, he posted these resolutions on LinkedIn about fundamentally changing how he worked and lived. No more Zooms all day, valuing his time differently. It resonated with millions because so many people felt that same unsustainable pressure.
Especially post-pandemic, maybe.
Newport argues the pandemic didn't necessarily increase the amount of core work, but it massively inflated what he calls the overhead tax.
Overhead tax, what's that?
It's all the small, unexpected, urgent tasks that pull you away from your main projects. Emails, quick questions, urgent requests, meetings. And remote work, while having benefits, often made collaboration less efficient. Like a 5-minute chat by the water cooler turns into a scheduled 30-minute Zoom call.
Ugh, yeah, overhead just ballooned.
Right. So the key point of do fewer things isn't actually accomplish fewer things overall. It's that a sparser workload allows you to give proper attention to what matters, leading to more useful output, better quality, and frankly, better psychological and economic results. Less frantic juggling, more focused creation.
So reducing the overhead tax is crucial.
Hugely. He talks about this phenomenon where knowledge workers often operate at the maximum sustainable overhead tax. It feels constantly overloaded, perpetually behind, but it's just manageable enough that the system never gets reformed. You just live with the feeling of being swamped.
That sounds depressingly familiar for a lot of people, I bet.
I think so. And he critiques the old models of overwork, like factory conflict theory, saying they don't quite fit knowledge work, where tasks are often semi-autonomous and assigned kind of haphazardly. It's not always a clear top-down exploitation. Sometimes it's just chaos.
So how do we fight the chaos? What are the strategies for doing fewer things?
He offers a few. One is about limiting your missions, your ongoing goals, or areas of responsibility. It's easy for these to multiply. He uses Jenny Blake, an author and coach, as an example. At one point, she was trying to support over 10 different income streams.
10? Wow.
Yeah. She realized it was totally unsustainable and drastically simplified, cutting back to like 20-hour work weeks and taking 2 months off a year, focusing on fewer, more impactful missions.
Okay, limit the number of ongoing things.
Limit the big.
Yeah.
Basically, learn to say no to major new commitments when your plate is already full. He gives the amazing example of Andrew Wiles working on Fermat's last theorem.
Oh, the mathematician.
Yeah. He worked on it in secret for 7 years. For the first 5, he deliberately avoided taking on any other significant projects or university obligations that would distract him. Total focus.
How did he manage that without people noticing he wasn't doing much else?
He had a cunning ploy, as Newport calls it. He took some of his earlier, less groundbreaking research on elliptic curves and broke it up into smaller chunks, publishing them piece by piece over those years. It created the appearance of steady, normal productivity while he was secretly tackling the monster problem.
Huh. That is cunning. Maintaining appearances while doing the deep work.
Exactly. It underscored the need for clarity and control over your schedule to keep your workload manageable. And Newport argues that saying no isn't actually that hard when you have clear evidence like your packed schedule showing it's the only reasonable answer. It's not being difficult, it's being realistic.
Having the data to back up the no.
Right. And one more quick example he uses is Benjamin Franklin. Early in his career as a printer and postmaster, he was totally overloaded, spread thin.
Even Ben Franklin.
Even Ben Franklin. But then he made a surprising move. He effectively delegated much of the day-to-day printing business to his partner, David Hall. This freed Franklin up considerably.
Shifting his focus by handing off tasks.
Precisely. It allowed him to pursue other, more engaging, maybe slower projects, inventing the Franklin stove, founding the American Philosophical Society, shifting away from constant busyness towards fewer, more impactful things. It's an early example of slow productivity in action.
So it really comes down to being intentional about what you take on, protecting your time and focus.
That's the core of this first principle. Understanding the trap of pseudo-productivity, the constant busyness, and then actively choosing to do fewer things so you can actually do them well.
Okay, that gives us a lot to think about just with the first principle. We've covered the problem, this pseudo-productivity and burnout, and started digging into Newport's solution with do fewer things.
Yeah, laying the groundwork. It's about recognizing that overload isn't sustainable or even effective for high-quality work.
So maybe take a moment, you listening, to reflect on your own workload. How much of it feels like essential deep work versus that overhead tax? Could doing fewer things actually lead to better results for you?
It's a challenging question, but a really important one to ask.
Absolutely. And remember, this is just the start of our deep dive into slow productivity. We've only scratched the surface.
There's still the other two principles, working at a natural pace and obsessing over quality, plus a lot more nuance to explore.
Exactly. So if you found this helpful, make sure you're following Bookish Dives. We bring you these kinds of in-depth summaries and discussions on thought-provoking books regularly.
And we'll definitely be continuing this exploration of slow productivity in future dives. Don't miss it.